Have you ever had someone wearing a fake police uniform block your driveway and order you around like they own the place I have? Two men parked a shiny black SUV right in front of my farm gate, claiming I violated HOA regulations and forbidding me from entering or leaving for 72 hours. No court order, no real paperwork, just a laser-printed notice with a faded stamp. They thought I'd be scared and back down. They were wrong, because when they came back a second time and blocked my gate with their own vehicle, I knew something was about to happen to these fake cops, and what I did next shocked the entire community. This is the story of how I reclaimed justice, the right way, without violence. The diesel engine of my F-250 rumbled as I turned onto Ridgeline Road, the truck bed loaded with 50-pound bags of organic fertilizer. Through the dust, I saw them. Two men were standing beside a black SUV with the license plate BLK 7739 parked sideways across my farm gate. I downshifted and slowed. Something felt wrong. They wore dark vests with security enforcement printed across the chest and laminated badge tags clipped to the front. Official looking at a glance. They didn't move when they saw me coming. I pulled up 20 feet away and cut the engine. I stepped out and walked toward them, the taller one, mid-30s with a buzz cut. "Step forward. Officer Daniels," he said, holding up a hand like a traffic cop. "This is Officer Grant." He gestured to the shorter man with a clipboard. "We're here on behalf of the HOA Enforcement Division. You need to stop right there." I stopped, not because he told me to, but because I wanted to see where this was going. I glanced past them at my gate. The chain was locked. My 12 acres of organic vegetables and free-range chickens looked untouched. "What's this about?" I asked, keeping my voice level. He pulled a folded paper from his vest pocket. "You violate HOA Code 14.2b, he said. "Commercial agriculture in a residential zone. You're ordered to cease all operations for 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in a fine of $2,000 per day." I didn't take the paper. "Commercial agriculture," I repeated. "That's funny, considering my farm isn't in the HOA. Daniels didn't blink. "The HOA has jurisdiction over this area. You need to comply." I felt anger build, slow and cold, but kept it locked down. "Show me your credentials," I said. "Show me a court order or a sheriff's badge number." Daniels smirked. "We don't need to show you anything. We're authorized enforcement officers. Now, are you going to cooperate, or do we need to escalate this?" I pulled out my phone, opened the camera app, and started recording. "I'm recording this," I said. "I need to see identification or anything that proves you have legal authority here." Grant shifted his weight, hand moving to his belt radio. "Lady said you'd make trouble," Grant muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. I caught it. "Lady. So someone sent them." I took a step closer. "This property is 340 feet outside the HOA boundary," I said. "I checked the land records before I bought it. You have no jurisdiction here, unless you have a real court order. You're trespassing." Daniels's smirk faded. He dropped the paper at my feet. "You've been warned," he said. "Their 3-day order stands. If you're still operating after that, we'll be back." He turned and walked to the SUV. Grant followed. I stood there as they drove off, kicking up dust. I picked up the paper. Cheap printer stock. The HOA Enforcement Division logo at the top looked blurry, pixelated like a stretched image. No signature, no case number, no official seal, just generic threats. I folded it into my pocket and walked to the gate. My security camera, a 4K model I'd installed 6 months ago, was mounted on the post. I opened the app, found the clip from 2:15 p.m., and watched. Clear footage of their faces, the plate BLK 7739 and the exchange. I downloaded it to my phone, saved it to a USB drive, backed it up to cloud storage, and took screenshots. Evidence secured. I unlocked the gate and drove through. As I headed up the driveway, I replayed it. Officer Daniels and Officer Grant, private contractor imposters with counterfeit paperwork. Not real officers. No sheriff's badge, no court order, no legal standing. Just intimidation dressed as authority. I thought about my chickens, my harvest schedule, the $2,000 fines they'd threatened. The cost of inaction could ruin me. I needed to know who sent them and why. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Grant's words. The lady said you'd make trouble. Who was the lady I got up around 2 a.m., made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I searched for the HOA Enforcement Division in county records and the state business registry. Nothing. No such entity existed. Then I pulled up the county vehicle registration database and entered BLK 7739. The result came back registered to Guardian Shield Security LLC. I took a screenshot. Then I searched state corporate filings for Guardian Shield Security LLC. The entry loaded. Under Registered Agent Beverly Ashford. I took another screenshot. I cross-referenced Beverly Ashford with local HOA records. Beverly Ashford, HOA Board President for 4 years. When I saw her name linked to Guardian Shield, I realized this wasn't random harassment. It was deliberate. Someone with power. Someone who thought she could use fake authority to push me off my land. I stared at the screenshots on my screen. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but I needed more. I needed to know why Beverly Ashford wanted me gone. And I needed proof that would hold up when I took this to the sheriff, because I wasn't going to let this slide. Not without a fight. A legal one. Within a few days after the encounter at my gate, the harassment escalated. I woke up to find 3 new notifications on my phone. The first was an email with the subject line, HOA Violation Notice. Fine attached. $1,500. The body claimed I'd violated noise ordinances by operating my tractor at 6:30 a.m. The second was a certified letter in my mailbox, warning about alleged wastewater discharge violations from my drip irrigation system. The third was a formal threat of litigation, stamped with Beverly Ashford's name. All 3 documents carried the same demanding tone. No one drafts 3 separate legal notices overnight. They'd been planning this. I sat at my kitchen table and read through each notice. The noise violation was absurd. Agricultural equipment was exempt from residential noise restrictions, and my farm wasn't even in the HOA's jurisdiction. The wastewater claim was equally false. My drip irrigation system was state-approved and inspected annually. The litigation threat stated that if I didn't comply within 10 days, they'd file a lawsuit seeking $12,000 in damages and a court order to shut down my farm within 30 days. This wasn't about regulations. This was about pressure. Someone wanted me gone. I called the HOA office. A woman answered. Her voice clipped. HOA management. How can I help you? This is Wyatt Sullivan, I said. I received several violation notices. My property isn't within HOA boundaries. There was a pause. Then typing. I'm sorry, she said, but all disputes must be submitted in writing. We don't handle complaints over the phone. I'm telling you there's been a mistake, I said. My farm is 340 feet outside your jurisdiction. I have the survey maps to prove it. Then send us the documentation, she said. We'll review it and respond within 14 business days. She hung up. I immediately sent an email with the survey maps attached, along with my deed and the county recorder's certification. I waited 3 days. No response. I called again. The same woman told me they'd received my email and that the board would address it at their next meeting in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the 10-day deadline on their litigation threat was ticking down. They were stalling, hoping I'd either pay the fines or abandon the fight. That's when I decided to dig deeper. I hired a private investigator named Russ, a retired cop with contacts in the county development office. I gave him everything. The fake violation notices, the screenshots of Beverly Ashford's name on Guardian Shield's corporate filings, and the video of Daniels and Grant at my gate. I needed to know who Beverly Ashford really was and why she cared about my farm. Russ called me back 3 days later. The first thing he said, I pulled the county plat file. Your parcel was never annexed by the HOA. You're clean. Then he dropped the bigger news. Beverly Ashford isn't just the HOA board president, Russ said. She's also the sole owner of Ashford Land Holdings LLC, a small real estate investment company. And Ashford Land Holdings has been negotiating to buy 8 parcels adjacent to your farm. They filed a development proposal 9 months ago for a townhome development. High-end units. Projected completion next spring. Estimated project value of $4.2 million. I felt my jaw tighten. Let me guess, I said. My farm is in the way. Exactly, Russ said. Your property sits right in the middle of their planned access road and main view corridor. Without your land, the project loses most of its value. Russ sent me the documents through a secure link. Public filings. planning emails accessed through an old contact, and one whistleblower tip from a disgruntled HOA staffer. I opened them on my laptop. There it was, a site map showing my 12 acres labeled as Parcel A to be acquired. I scrolled further and found an email thread between Beverly and a real estate broker, dated 9 months earlier. The broker had sent Beverly an appraisal for my farm. The estimated market value was $800,000. Beverly's response was blunt. Offer him $520,000. He's new to the area. He'll take it if we move fast. I remembered that offer. It had come through my mailbox last fall, unsolicited, well below market value. I'd ignored it. I kept reading. Another email, this one from Beverly to her attorney, dated 2 weeks ago. Subject line, escalation strategy. The body was short, but damning. Push him harder. He'll crack by the end of the month. Then we move in with a final offer, $480,000. Take it or litigation hell. Russ told me the email had surfaced during a prior public records request filed by another property owner who'd fought the HOA last year. I sat back, staring at the screen. This wasn't just harassment. It was extortion. Beverly couldn't buy my land at a fair price, so she was using the HOA as a weapon to force me out. I backed up everything cloud storage, hard drive, and a glove box USB. Each folder labeled fraud evidence. Then I printed the emails, corporate filings, fake violation notices, and video screenshots. I organized everything into a binder with labeled tabs. Evidence of harassment, evidence of fraud, evidence of conspiracy. I didn't know yet how I'd use it, but Beverly Ashford had made a mistake. She thought I was just a farmer who'd roll over. She didn't realize I'd spent years working in land disputes, that I knew how to follow a paper trail, and that I wasn't afraid to fight back. Not with violence, with the law. That night, I sat on my porch and looked out over my farm. The rows of vegetables were thriving. The chickens were settling into their coops. Everything I'd worked for was here, built from the ground up. And someone thought they could take it from me with fake paperwork and intimidation. I thought about Beverly Ashford sitting in her office, confident that I'd fold. I thought about Daniels and Grant, playing dress-up cop for a paycheck. And I thought about what came next, because this wasn't over. Beverly wanted a fight. She was about to get one, and the binder on my table was my weapon. 72 hours after I compiled the evidence binder, I decided to set a trap. Not an illegal one, but something that would force Beverly's hand and give me the proof I needed. I knew she wouldn't stop with fake notices and threats. People like her escalate when they don't get their way. I drafted a formal email to the HOA board, copied all 5 members, including Beverly, and attached my survey maps, deed, and county certification. The email was polite but firm. I stated that my farm was outside HOA jurisdiction, requested that all harassment cease within 5 days, and warned that any further action would be considered illegal. Then I added one carefully worded sentence. I'll be attending a conference in Portland from March 22nd through March 24th and won't be available to respond during that time. I didn't have a conference. I wasn't going anywhere, but I wanted Beverly to think my farm would be unguarded. I wasn't luring them into a crime. They'd already crossed that line. I was just giving them room to prove it. I spent the next 2 days preparing. I installed 2 additional motion-activated cameras with night vision at the gate and shed, plus a trail camera in the trees. All 4 feeds streamed to cloud storage with alerts to my phone. I bought UV dye and applied it to the gate latch, chain lock, and tool handles. Under normal light, invisible. Under UV light, bright blue. I also parked my John Deere 57E tractor near the gate, front-end loader attached, with a dash cam hidden inside. Everything was in place. On the night of March 23rd, I sat watching the camera feeds. At 1:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. The black SUV with plate BLK 7739 rolled up, headlights off. Daniels and Grant climbed out with a bolt cutter and a pry bar. They cut my chain lock, forced open the shed, and started taking photos. Then Grant's voice came through. "You want us to mess up the equipment?" A woman's voice responded. Distorted, but unmistakable. "Just document everything. We need photos for the violation report. Don't break anything yet. Beverly." I downloaded every file, backed it up 3 times, and waited. I knew they'd be back. The next morning at 6:15 a.m., I was feeding chickens when I heard an engine. The same black SUV pulled up and parked sideways across my gate, completely blocking it. Daniels and Grant climbed out holding another fake notice. "This is your final warning," Daniels shouted. "Farm operations are suspended. Any attempt to leave or enter will be considered obstruction." I walked toward them slowly. "You're blocking my gate," I said. "Move your vehicle." Daniels smirked. "We're not moving until you sign this." Grant crossed his arms. "The lady said you'd fold if we pushed hard enough." I didn't argue. I turned, walked to my John Deere, and fired up the diesel engine. The sound echoed deep and steady. I lowered the front-end loader to ground level and drove toward the SUV. "Hey, what are you doing?" Daniels yelled. I didn't answer. I maneuvered the loader under the front chassis, found the frame rails, and slowly applied upward pressure. Metal groaned. The front tires lifted off the ground, inch by inch. Daniels and Grant ran toward me. "Are you insane? Put it down." Grant pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the cops. This is destruction of property." I stopped, engine idling, and looked at them calmly. "Go ahead," I said. "Call the real cops. I'd love to explain why 2 fake officers are blocking my private gate." Then I continued lifting. 4.5 feet. High enough. I drove forward slowly, aligning the suspended SUV with my 6-foot wooden fence. The posts were solid oak, built to hold weight. I angled the loader and gently lowered the front end onto the top rail. The vehicle rested there, nose up, rear tires barely touching ground, like a bizarre sculpture. Daniels and Grant stood frozen, mouths open. I shut off the tractor, climbed down, and walked over. "Your vehicle is on my property," I said. "You can call a tow truck to get it down after you leave, and next time you want to play cop, make sure you're not trespassing." They didn't say another word. They just turned and walked down the road, leaving the SUV hanging there. I pulled out my phone and took photos from every angle. License plate BLK 7739 is clearly visible. The SUV balanced on the fence. Timestamp 6:28 a.m. Perfect. Then I called the county sheriff's non-emergency line. "This is Wyatt Sullivan at Ridgeline Road," I said. "2 individuals posing as law enforcement officers trespassed on my property, blocked my gate with their vehicle, and refused to leave. I relocated their vehicle to a safe position on my fence using farm equipment. No damage. I have video evidence of the entire incident and would like to file a formal complaint for trespassing, impersonation, and obstruction." The dispatcher paused. "You relocated their vehicle to your fence?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. "With a front-end loader. It's currently resting on my property. I can provide full documentation. She said a deputy would be out within 2 hours." I sat on the porch steps and waited, looking at the SUV perched on my fence, glinting in the morning sun. It was absurd. It was perfect. And it was completely legal. I hadn't damaged their vehicle. I'd simply moved an obstruction off my access road and placed it on my own property, if they wanted it back. They'd have to explain to the sheriff why they'd blocked my gate in the first place. The binder was ready. The evidence was locked in. And now, everyone would see exactly what Beverly Ashford's enforcers looked like when their bluff got called. Phase 2 was complete, and the law was on its way. The deputy arrived at 8:45 a.m. His name was Deputy Carson, mid-40s, solid build, the kind of cop who'd seen enough to stay calm but sharp enough to notice details. I met him at the gate and showed him the cut chain lock still lying on the ground. He crouched down, examined it, took a few photos with his phone, then stood and looked at me. "Walk me through what happened," he said. I walked Carson through everything: the footage, the filings, the prior encounters. I played him the video on my phone. He watched in silence as Daniels and Grant cut the lock, forced open the shed, and took photos inside. When Beverly's voice came through the audio, faint but clear, his eyebrows went up. "That's the HOA President," I said. "Beverly Ashford." She was directing them remotely. Deputy Carson replayed that section twice, then made a note in his pad. "Do you know the 2 men in the video?" he asked. I showed him the screenshots from my first encounter, the ones with their faces and the license plate BLK 7739. "They called themselves Officer Daniels and Officer Grant," I said. "But they're not real cops. The vehicle is registered to Guardian Shield Security, LLC, a company owned partially by Beverly Ashford. I handed him printed copies of the corporate filings. Carson flipped through the pages, his expression tightening. "This is a lot of documentation," he said. "You've been building a case." "I had to," I said. "They weren't going to stop." He nodded slowly, then walked over to the shed. I followed. He inspected the splintered door, took more photos, and asked if anything was stolen. "No," I said. "But they damaged property and trespassed with intent to fabricate evidence for fake HOA violations." I pulled out my UV flashlight and showed him the glowing blue traces on the tools where Daniels and Grant had touched them. Carson raised an eyebrow. "UV dye," I said. "I applied it before they showed up. Anyone who handled these tools is marked." He looked impressed. "Smart," he said. "That's evidence of contact." He sealed the tool in an evidence bag, labeled it with the case number, and logged it in his notes. "The forensic lab can confirm the compound on their clothes," he added. "If we find them, this will stick." We walked back to the gate. I gave him a USB drive with all the footage, time-stamped and organized. Then he asked the question I'd been waiting for. "What do you want to happen here?" I kept my voice steady. "I want charges filed," I said. "Trespassing, vandalism, impersonation of law enforcement, and criminal conspiracy. I want Beverly Ashford held accountable for directing this, and I want it on record so she can't do this to anyone else." Carson nodded. "I'll forward this to the detective unit," he said. "Impersonation is a felony. If we can prove she orchestrated it, that's a conspiracy. But I need you to understand, building a case like this takes time." I told him I understood, but I also told him I wasn't going to sit back and wait while Beverly escalated further. "I've already compiled a full evidence binder," I said. "If she tries anything else, I'm taking it to the district attorney's office directly." Carson looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Let us handle it the right way. If you go public too soon, it could complicate prosecution. I'll make sure this gets priority." He was right. Pushing too soon could jeopardize prosecution. I hated waiting, but the law had to move first. He gave me a case number, told me he'd be in touch within 48 hours, and left. I stood at the gate, watching his patrol car disappear. The law was in motion, but I wasn't done yet. Later that afternoon, I received an email. It was from someone named Marcia Yates, and the subject line read, "You're not the first." I opened it cautiously. The email was short. "Mr. Sullivan, I work as an internal accountant for the HOA. I've seen what Beverly Ashford has been doing to you, and I want you to know she's done this before. 4 other homeowners were harassed into selling their properties over the past 3 years. I have documentation if you're interested. Please keep my name confidential." I checked the sender's email domain. It matched the HOA's internal directory. She was real. I replied immediately, thanking her and asking if we could meet in person. She responded within an hour, suggesting a coffee shop in town the next morning. I agreed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Marcia had said. 4 other homeowners. 4 people who'd been pushed out by fake violations, legal threats, and intimidation. People who probably didn't have the resources or the evidence to fight back. I thought about how close I'd come to being number 5, and I thought about Beverly Ashford, sitting in her office, confident that she could keep doing this without consequences. The anger was still there, cold and controlled, but now it was mixed with something else, purpose. This wasn't just about my farm anymore. The next morning, I met Marcia at the coffee shop. She was in her early 50s, nervous, glancing around like she expected someone to walk in and recognize her. I ordered us both coffee and sat down across from her. She slid a thick envelope across the table. Inside were printed emails, budget reports, and internal memos. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. She took a breath. 3 years, at least. Beverly's been using HOA funds to pay Guardian Shield security for enforcement actions that were never approved by the board. She covers it up by listing the payments as community improvement expenses. "How much?" I asked. She hesitated. "Over $15,000, spread across multiple transactions, all funneled through companies Beverly has ties to." I flipped through the documents. There were payment records, emails between Beverly and Guardian Shield's owner, and notes from board meetings where Beverly had deflected questions about the budget. "Why are you coming forward now?" I asked. Marcia looked down at her coffee. "Because I'm tired of watching her destroy people." she said, "and because I think you're the first person who's actually going to fight back." I thanked her, promised to keep her name out of it as long as possible, and left with the envelope, back at the farm. I added everything to the binder. The case had expanded beyond trespassing and fake cops. This was a pattern of abuse that had gone unchecked for years. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the binder, and felt the weight of it. Beverly Ashford had no idea what was coming. This wasn't just a fight for my farm anymore. It was about every person Beverly had crushed, and it was my turn to stop her. 72 hours after I met with Deputy Carson, I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for the legal system to crawl through its process while Beverly kept operating unchecked. I needed to force her hand, publicly, in a way that left no room for her to spin the narrative or hide behind the HOA's authority. The perfect opportunity came in the form of a notice posted on the community board. Open HOA board meeting, April 1st, 7 p.m., Community Center. All residents welcome. State law required HOA meetings to be open to the public, and this one was going to be mine. I printed out every piece of evidence I had, organized it into a presentation folder, and prepared to do what Beverly Ashford feared most: expose her in front of everyone, the night of the meeting. I arrived early. The community center was a modest building on the edge of the neighborhood, with a main hall that could fit about 100 people. I expected the usual turnout, maybe 15 or 20 residents, but when I walked in at 6:45 p.m., the room was already filling. Word had gotten around. By the time the meeting started, there were 87 people in attendance, more than the HOA had seen in years. I sat in the front row, my laptop and a USB drive in my bag, and waited. Beverly Ashford walked in at exactly 7 p.m., flanked by 2 other board members. She looked composed, confident, dressed like she was heading into a corporate boardroom. She took her seat at the head table, adjusted the microphone, and opened the meeting with standard procedural announcements. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes flicked toward me every few seconds. She knew I was there, and she knew what was coming. When the meeting moved to open public comment, I stood. Beverly's face tightened. She forced a smile. "Yes, Mr. Sullivan, you have 3 minutes." I walked to the podium, connected my laptop to the projector, and turned to face the audience. "My name is Wyatt Sullivan," I said. "I own a farm on Ridgeline Road, 340 feet outside this HOA's legal jurisdiction. Over the past month, I've been subjected to harassment, fake violation notices, and a break-in orchestrated by this board's president, Beverly Ashford. State law allowed any resident to present evidence during open comment, provided it concerned HOA conduct. Tonight, I'm going to show you exactly what she's been doing, and I'm going to prove it. I played the footage that everyone had heard rumors about. The fake cops are blocking my gate, the break-in, the voice giving orders. The projector screen lit up with Daniels and Grant cutting through my chain lock, forcing open my shed, and taking photos inside. Then came the audio, Grant's voice asking, "You want us to mess up the equipment?" Followed by Beverly's voice, faint but unmistakable, saying, "Just document everything. We need photos for the violation report. Don't break anything yet." The room went silent. People leaned forward, eyes fixed on the screen. I paused the video and pulled up the corporate filings showing Beverly's ties to Guardian Shield Security. Then the financial records Marcia had provided. "Over the past 3 years," I said, "Beverly Ashford has funneled more than $15,000 in HOA funds to this company for unauthorized enforcement actions. She's also targeted at least 4 other homeowners with similar harassment tactics, forcing them to sell so she could develop their land through her company, Ashford Land Holdings." Beverly stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. "That audio is fabricated," she said. Her voice wavered, part outrage, part disbelief. "You edited that. It's fake." I turned to her, calm. "It's not fake," I said. "The original file is logged as evidence in an open case by the sheriff's office. Deputy Carson has a copy. If you want to claim it's edited, you're welcome to explain that to the detective unit investigating your involvement in criminal trespassing and conspiracy." Beverly's face went white. She opened her mouth, closed it, then sat back down. One of the other board members, a man in his 60s, stood. "Ms. Ashford, is this true? Did you hire these men?" Beverly hesitated, then said, I was trying to protect property values. That farm doesn't belong in this area. It's ruining the neighborhood." The man stared at her. "You hired fake cops to harass a property owner who isn't even in our jurisdiction." She didn't answer. Another board member, a woman with graying hair, stood. "This meeting is being recorded per state law," she said. "Ms. Ashford, you just admitted to using HOA resources for personal gain. We will forward this transcript to the district attorney." The room stayed silent as everyone processed what they'd just heard. Beverly stood, grabbed her bag, and walked toward the exit. No one stopped her. No one said a word. The only sound was the click of her heels on the wooden floor, echoing through the hall until the door slammed shut behind her. That night, the board held an emergency vote to suspend her pending investigation. One of the members approached me afterward and promised reimbursement for damages. The next day, I received a check for $4,800, compensation for repairs, legal fees, and time lost. I folded the check and walked out to my truck. The fight wasn't over yet. The district attorney still had to build a case. Beverly could still hire lawyers, try to deflect blame, and drag this out for months. But something had shifted. The truth had been spoken out loud, in front of witnesses, on the record. Justice wouldn't happen overnight, but that night, for the first time, the truth had a microphone, and she had nowhere left to hide. 3 months later, the full weight of the law came down. I was sitting on my porch one morning in early July when I got the call from Deputy Carson. "Wyatt," he said, "I wanted you to hear it from me first. Beverly Ashford pleaded guilty this morning. Theft by deception and criminal conspiracy. The other charges were reduced as part of the plea deal, but she's not walking away clean." I set my coffee down and listened. 18 months supervised probation, he continued. 240 hours of community service. $37,500 in restitution, split between the HOA, you, and the 4 other victims Marcia identified. And she's permanently banned from serving on any HOA board in the state for the next 10 years. I exhaled slowly. What about Daniels and Grant? They took plea deals too, Carson said. 6 months probation each. 100 hours of community service. And they lost their security licenses permanently. Guardian Shield Security had its state license revoked and shut down 6 weeks ago. I thanked Carson and hung up. I sat there for a while, letting it sink in. It was over. Not just the harassment, but the whole twisted system Beverly had built to intimidate people into submission. She'd spent years using fake authority and manufactured violations to push homeowners off their land, and now she was paying for it. Not with violence, not with revenge, with accountability. The law had done its job. Slowly, methodically, but it had done it. And that mattered. It mattered because it proved that people like Beverly, people who abuse small amounts of power for personal gain, aren't untouchable. They can be stopped, but only if someone stands up, gathers the evidence, and refuses to back down. A week later, I received a letter from the new HOA board president, a retired engineer named Howard Mills. The letter was formal but sincere. On behalf of the board, we apologize for the harassment you endured under the previous administration. We have implemented new policies to ensure transparency and prevent abuse of authority. All enforcement actions now require board approval and documentation. We hope this restores trust in our community governance. It was a small gesture, but it meant something. The HOA had changed, not because they wanted to, but because they'd been forced to see what unchecked power could do, and because 87 people had witnessed the truth in that community center and demanded better. That afternoon, I walked out to the front gate. The chain lock had been replaced weeks ago, but I'd kept the old one, the one Daniels and Grant had cut through that night. I'd been thinking about what to do with it. Some people might have thrown it away, tried to forget the whole ordeal, but I didn't want to forget. I wanted to remember what it felt like to be pushed, to be threatened, and to fight back the right way. So I made something out of it. I mounted a small wooden sign on the gate post, hand-carved with a simple message. We don't start trouble here, but we ended it right. And below the sign, I hung the old cut lock, not as a reminder of pain, but as a symbol that justice doesn't require violence. It requires patience, evidence, and the courage to stand in front of a room full of people and tell the truth. I stood back and looked at it. The farm stretched out behind me. Rows of vegetables thriving in the summer sun, chickens pecking at the dirt. Everything I'd built was still here, still mine, because I hadn't let fear win. I hadn't let fake authority intimidate me into giving up what was right, and I'd made sure Beverly Ashford couldn't do this to anyone else. That was the real victory. Not the restitution check, not the apology letter. The victory was knowing that the next person who faced someone like Beverly would have a precedent, a paper trail, a reason to believe that fighting back was worth it. The truth is, we all face bullies in different forms. Sometimes it's a neighbor, sometimes it's a system. Sometimes it's someone in a position of small power who thinks they're untouchable. But here's what I learned. Document everything. Stay calm. Follow the law. And when the moment comes, don't be afraid to stand up and show the world exactly what happened, because the truth, backed by evidence, is the most powerful weapon you'll ever have. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever faced something similar, or if you believe in holding people accountable the right way, support this channel. Subscribe to Karma Clause. Share these stories, because every time we shine a light on injustice, we make it a little harder for the next bully to hide. Thank you for listening. And remember, we don't start trouble, but we ended it right.